go. I absolutely don't know where they went. But here we are, the 6th Caring Community Conference. And it's my pleasure to welcome you today. This conference that has brought together local, national, and international concerns, I believe, has made an impact on what's happening in Jacksonville. And that's what we're all about. Our goal is to improve health care here in Jacksonville. You know, last year I used a quote, and I want to use it again, because to me, it's truly the essence about the joy and the privilege and the responsibility of working in healthcare. It's really why those of us in this room who work in healthcare continue to do this work. And it goes like this. When health is absent, wisdom cannot reveal itself. Art can't manifest. Strength cannot fight. Wealth becomes useless. And intelligence can't be applied. Isn't that it? When you have your health, you have the opportunity to have it all. If you don't have your health, things aren't so good. I have now the next honor to introduce President Delaney, who obviously needs no introduction to this group. Our president here of UNF is at a board of governors meeting. I believe it's in Miami. And so he was kind enough to do an introduction to this conference via video. So here is President Delaney.
Okay. We're delighted that the Center for Global Health and Medical Diplomacy has been such a success since it came on campus. Some of the notes that Yank sent over to me to comment on, one of them was, if it didn't exist, we'd have to invent it. In reality, we did invent it, and with a great collaboration with a former board trustee, O'Neill Douglas, Dean Pam Challey, and then, of course, ultimately, Yank Coble. And it's been a wonderful place for the community to dialogue on health issues, medical issues. Clearly, it's been a hot topic nationally, and so it's great to have a format to be able to delve into these in the local community. Medical care and health care are really different in a lot of different ways, and the center is the place to kind of explore how to improve in each, what those differences are, and to have the series of work groups, seminars, conferences, public events, invited speakers. It's what universities are about. It's what UNF wants to be about, is to be the place where Northeast Florida thinks. So we're very, very pleased that this endeavor is continuing, and have a good evening.
Thank you, President Delaney. It is now my privilege to introduce Dr. Yank Coble. He's another individual who everyone in this room knows so well, and he's done so very much to improve health care in Jacksonville. It is such a privilege to be able to introduce him. Dr. Coble.
Well, thank you very much, Dean Challey. You can certainly see how hard it is to follow Dean Challey, particularly when she says so many things that are a little marginal to truth. But it's a great honor to be associated with her. One of the particular assets of being mentored and protected by Dean Challey is that you learn a lot of the potholes of academia before you step into them. So we're particularly grateful for her contribution to this entity surviving and flourishing in so many ways. Could I just ask a question, please? How many people here were involved in 2007 at the Caring Community Conference? Do we see? As you can see, a lot. How many people here have been at all 6? Fair enough, surprising number. And so for those of you who weren't there at the beginning, it was an initiative that was started by O'Neill Douglas and President Delaney when they thought that we should have a more global presence and our perspective to what's going on locally. And we held that first conference with bringing in people who were well known nationally and internationally in academia, in medical care, and education, and developed some guidelines as to what our priorities would be. Focus groups developed that turned into work groups in 12 specific areas, but they evolved around patient care, education and research, and our healthcare bioscience industry. This particularly got our attention because a study was done with the Chamber of Commerce and the Coggin College of Business a few months prior to that conference that showed that our healthcare bioscience industry was significantly the largest employer in our region. And on top of that, it's an industry that has a high per capita income, which was a very desirable aspect, and certainly an industry that one would want to grow. So that issue has been addressed at each of our conferences. It's a special asset of ours and one that we have hoped would continue to grow, and it actually has grown. And as has occurred in other nations during the economic crisis, it has buffered the loss of jobs that has occurred in other parts of the industry. So in other words, this is an industry that is a great economic asset in addition to the humanitarian aspect that you know so well. The second, third, fourth, and fifth conferences addressed all those issues more specifically. So we went back to many of you and the CEOs to say, what should we address this time? And you were fairly specific. You said that we have a concern about the safety net hospitals in this area. Now, that's something that hasn't gotten a lot of visibility recently, but it has in the past. For example, some of us here were working at the Duval Medical Center in 1970 as volunteers on the teaching staff. The teaching staff was important to us because it's the oldest medical residency program in the state, and it's the third largest supplier of medical residents in the state, and it also is the largest source of practicing physicians in our region. So it has been a very important part of our community for a very long time. So we looked at this particular group and find that it is still growing. Several institutions have residencies: St. Vincent's, the Navy, the University of Florida Shands Jacksonville, and the Mayo Clinic. And those residents and medical students are in institutions all around our community. It was seen during this time that we needed to also look at the aspect of one of the top priorities of the conference, and that were the quality initiatives, and do we need to do things in a collaborative spirit? And that occurred fairly rapidly, primarily with the leadership of Bill Maples, who was chief of quality at the Mayo Clinic at that time, and the chiefs of quality in the other institutions. They put together a quality steering committee, a quality collaborative, with the help of the Arthur Vining Davis Foundation, with the Department of Defense, and most recently with the Riverside Hospital Foundation, who have been enormously helpful in the last few years and in the future. They have done some things that you'll find fascinating, starting at about 11 o'clock and extending to lunch and breakout session. We hope you'll all participate in that session. The global aspect of this we thought would be good to start off with. For the last 6 years, we've had two of the most known people in world medicine. The Secretary General of the World Medical Association, Ottmar Kloiber, who is a German whose office is in France, who does a lot of his work in Switzerland and travels the world looking at health systems, has given his perspective of not only the variety of health systems around the world, but comparisons to ours, and also the economic value as well as the humanitarian value around the world. And in addition, we've had also for the last 6 years, Dr. Cecil Wilson, who's been president of the American College of Physicians, the Florida Medical Association, the American Medical Association, is president-elect of the World Medical Association, is also on the Health Secretary of Health's delegation to the World Health Organization. So he too has been greatly engaged from early in the 60s when he lived in Okinawa on the Navy base and did international work. So his interest has been not only very broad, but for a long duration. So we're fortunate to have Dr. Wilson to be our lead-off this morning to give us just what the environment is in the world, some of the systems that he has seen and learned about, how they compare to ours, things we might learn, and the interesting thing that we also have a lot of these models in various parts of our health systems in the United States.